Jake Morrison looked out the window of his ship and saw the biggest space station he had ever seen. The station was called Nexus Prime, and it was home to aliens from more than 200 different worlds. After 50 years of talking and making deals, humans were finally going to join the Galactic Council. Lisa Brooks stood next to Jake and read from her computer pad. She was his second in command and had been working on this mission for 3 years. The papers she held would change everything for humanity. "The Zephyrians want us to work in Mining Guild 7, she said. "The Veloxian people will control our farms and food production. Our soldiers will join the 3rd Defense Fleet under the Krillian commanders." Jake nodded, but something did not feel right. The aliens were putting humans into different groups and jobs, but never as leaders. Humans would always be the helpers, never the ones making decisions. But the promise of joining the galaxy and getting new technology seemed worth it. Dr. Alex Turner walked over to them with a worried look on his face. He was the smartest person on their team and knew more about alien technology than anyone else on Earth. "They are giving us better fusion reactors and some medical tools," he said quietly. "But nothing that would make us equal to them. We will still be far behind in technology." The ceremony to welcome humans into the galaxy was big and beautiful. Aliens from every corner of space came to watch. The leader of the Galactic Council was a tall being made of crystal called Zarthul. He gave a long speech about working together and helping each other. His words sounded nice but felt empty. Jake and his crew stayed on Nexus Prime for many weeks after the ceremony. They learned how the galaxy worked and what humans would be expected to do. The more they learned, the more worried they became. Humans would dig for metals and minerals on dangerous worlds. They would grow food that other aliens would eat. Their soldiers would fight in wars they did not understand. Lisa spent her days meeting with alien officials who treated her like a child. They would smile and nod when she talked, but never really listened to her ideas. When she asked about humans, getting better jobs or more technology, they would change the subject or say it would happen in time. Alex tried to visit the great libraries and research centers on the station. The aliens told him that such places were not for developing species. They said humans needed to prove themselves first before they could learn advanced science. When he asked how long that would take, they just smiled and walked away. Jake watched his people work alongside aliens who had been in the galaxy for hundreds of years. He noticed that some alien species were treated the same way humans were being treated. They did the hard work while other aliens made the decisions and kept the best technology for themselves. One day, Jake met an alien named Veltar from a species called the Hendorians. Veltar had been in the galaxy for over 200 years, but his people still did mining work and basic jobs. "Your species is strong and smart," Veltar told Jake in private. "But the Council will never let you rise above your current place. That is not how things work here." The words hit Jake like a punch to the stomach. He realized that joining the galaxy might not be the great step forward that Earth had hoped for. It might be the beginning of humanity becoming slaves to more powerful aliens. When Jake returned to his ship that night, he found Lisa and Alex waiting for him in his cabin. They had the same worried looks he had been carrying around for weeks. "We need to talk," Lisa said. "Really talk." Alex pulled out his computer and showed them data he had been collecting secretly. "The technology they promised us is basic stuff. The jobs they are giving us are dangerous and low-paying. The other species that joined recently are all stuck in the same situation. None of them have moved up in rank or gotten better treatment." Lisa had been talking to other human representatives throughout the station. "They are splitting us up on purpose," she said. "Humans from Earth will work on different worlds doing different jobs. We will never be together enough to organize or demand better treatment." Jake looked at his 2 closest friends and felt the weight of what they were discovering. Humanity had wanted to join the stars and be part of something bigger than themselves. Instead, they had signed up to be workers and soldiers for aliens who saw them as useful but unequal. The communication device on Jake's desk started beeping. A message was coming in from Earth. President Johnson wanted a full report on how the integration was going. Jake stared at the device and wondered what he should tell her. Should he tell the truth about what they were learning? Or should he wait and gather more information? Lisa put her hand on his shoulder. "We need to be careful," she said. "But we also need to be honest about what we are seeing here." Jake nodded and reached for the communication device. Whatever he told Earth would shape humanity's future in the galaxy. The question was whether that future would be one of freedom or one of service to others. 2 years had passed since humans joined the Galactic Council, and Jake Morrison was no longer exploring new worlds. Instead, he commanded a group of mining ships in the outer edge of space, far from Earth and far from anything exciting. His crew worked long hours digging metals and rare materials from dead rocks floating in space, while alien supervisors watched everything they did. Ben Parker sat in the eating area of their ship, staring at his meal pack. The food was bland and gave him just enough energy to work, but nothing more. "Do you remember when we thought joining the galaxy would mean seeing amazing new places?" he asked his friend, Kate Sullivan. "Now we just break apart rocks all day, like prisoners." Kate nodded and looked tired. She had been an engineer on Earth, designing new spacecraft and engines. Now she fixed mining equipment and followed orders from aliens who barely spoke to her. "My sister works in the farming division," she said. "They have humans growing food on 12 different worlds, but all the good food goes to feed other species. We get these nutrition packs that taste like cardboard." Jake heard their conversation and felt the same frustration they did. He had been a ship captain who explored unknown systems and made first contact with new civilizations. Now he was basically a space truck driver, moving rocks from one place to another, while aliens counted every piece of metal his crew found. Back on Earth, General Sam Collins was having his own problems with the military integration. Human soldiers were being used as the first troops to go into battle in wars they knew nothing about. They fought and died for causes that helped other species, while the aliens with better weapons and armor stayed safely behind them. When Collins asked for better equipment for his people, he was told that advanced weapons were only for senior species in the Council. Dr. Alex Turner had spent months trying to get access to the advanced science databases that the aliens had promised to share. Every time he requested information, he was told that such knowledge was not appropriate for developing species. The aliens said they would share their science when humans proved they were ready, but they never explained what humans needed to do to prove themselves. On the diplomatic side, Ambassador Rachel Green found herself sitting in council meetings, where her voice meant nothing. When she proposed that humans should be allowed to start their own colonies on empty worlds, the other council members voted against her without even discussing it. When she asked for the technology sharing that had been promised, they told her about proper integration timelines that seemed to stretch on forever. Rachel tried to build relationships with other junior species in the council, but found that they were all scared to talk openly. The few private conversations she managed to have revealed that these species had been stuck in the same position for decades or even centuries. They did the hard work while the senior species made all the decisions and kept the best technology for themselves. The breaking point came when the Zephyrians demanded that Earth increase its mining production by 300%. They said the materials were needed for a war effort against some unknown enemy, but humans were not allowed to know who they would be fighting or why. When Rachel protested in the council meeting, the Zephyrian representative told her that newer members needed to prove their commitment to galactic prosperity. That night, Rachel sat in her quarters on Nexus Prime and wrote a secret message to Earth. She used codes that only the highest levels of Earth government would understand. The message was simple but terrifying. Humanity was not joining the galaxy as equals but as servants, and the situation was getting worse instead of better. Jake received orders to move his mining operation to a system closer to the war zone. The aliens told him that humans were needed to extract materials for weapons and ships, but they did not explain what the war was about or who was fighting. When Jake asked for basic information about the dangers his crew might face, he was told that such details were classified above his clearance level. Ben and Kate helped Jake review the new orders in private. The system they were being sent to was known to have dangerous radiation and hostile conditions. Other mining crews that had worked there before had suffered high casualty rates, but the aliens considered this acceptable losses for the greater good of the war effort. "We are not partners in this galaxy," Kate said quietly. "We are tools that they use until we break." Jake looked at the star charts showing their new assignment and realized that Kate was right. Humans were being treated like equipment rather than people. They were valued only for what they could produce or how they could serve the interests of more powerful species. Alex sent his own secret messages to Earth, reporting that the technology sharing program had completely stopped. Instead of learning from the aliens, humans were being deliberately kept ignorant and dependent. The few pieces of technology they had been given were designed to make them better workers, not to advance human civilization. General Collins reported that human military units were being used as expendable shock troops in conflicts across the galaxy. The alien commanders showed no concern for human casualties and often sent human soldiers into situations that were clearly suicide missions. When Collins complained, he was told that such sacrifices were necessary for the security of the Council. Rachel discovered that the Council had secret meetings that junior species were not allowed to attend. In these meetings, the senior species made all the real decisions about galactic policy, trade routes, and resource allocation. The regular council meetings that included all species were just for show, to make the junior species feel like they had a voice when they really had none. The evidence was overwhelming. Humanity had not joined the galaxy as equal partners but as a conquered people. They had been tricked into giving up their independence in exchange for promises that were never meant to be kept. The question now was what they could do about it. Jake, Rachel, Alex, and General Collins all came to the same conclusion independently. They needed to warn Earth about what was really happening in the galaxy. But they also knew that simply complaining would not be enough. The Council had ways of dealing with species that caused trouble, and none of those ways ended well for the troublemakers. As Jake prepared his mining ships for their dangerous new assignment, he wondered if humanity would ever find a way to escape the trap they had walked into. The galaxy was beautiful and full of wonders, but it was also controlled by species that saw humans as nothing more than useful animals. The question was whether humans would accept this fate or find a way to fight back. The emergency meeting of Earth's Global Assembly was closed to all alien observers for the first time since humanity joined the Galactic Council. President Mary Johnson stood before the gathered leaders of every nation on Earth with a heavy heart. The reports from space had been getting worse each month, and now it was time to face the truth about what joining the galaxy really meant. "We have been members of the Galactic Council for 3 years," President Johnson began. "In that time, we have given them materials worth more money than our entire planet makes in a year. We have lost thousands of our best soldiers fighting in wars we know nothing about. In return, we have received almost nothing except the right to keep serving them." Secretary of Defense John Hayes stood up and presented the military situation to the Assembly. His face showed the strain of 3 years of watching human soldiers die for alien causes. "Our forces are spread across 40 different star systems, fighting battles we had no part in starting. The alien commanders treat our people like they can be thrown away. Last month alone, we lost 2,000 soldiers protecting a trade route that only benefits the Zephyrians." Dr. Alex Turner had returned to Earth the week before with intelligence that made everyone in the room feel sick. "I have studied the records of every species that has joined the Council in the past 1,000 years, he said. "The pattern is always the same. New species start as junior members and are promised that they will rise to equal status over time. But it never happens. Some species have been doing basic labor for the Council for over 500 years, and their status has never changed. Admiral Paul Morrison, Jake's father and the head of Earth's space fleet, had been quietly preparing for this day. While our people have been working in Council space, I have had our ships exploring systems outside Council control. We have found 17 worlds that could support human life, all of them in areas where the Council has no presence. The debate in the Assembly went on for hours. Some leaders wanted to try negotiating with the Council for better treatment. Others thought they should work within the system and try to change things gradually. But Ambassador Rachel Green's final report ended all arguments for staying. Rachel had flown back to Earth in secret, leaving her post without permission. Her voice shook as she spoke to the Assembly. I have discovered records of 53 species that tried to leave the Council over the past 1,000 years. In every single case, the Council sent military forces to bring them back. Those species were punished severely. Their home worlds were occupied by Council troops, and their people were made into slaves as an example to others. The room fell silent as the full meaning of her words sank in. President Johnson asked the question everyone was thinking. Are you saying that once a species joins the Council, they can never leave? Rachel nodded. The Council does not let anyone go. They see leaving as rebellion and they crush rebellions completely. But I also found something else. There are regions of space that Council ships cannot reach. Areas where their technology does not work properly. If we could get there, they might not be able to follow us. Dr. Turner smiled for the first time in months. I know about those regions. We call them the dark zones. Council records say they are filled with deadly radiation and impossible gravity fields that destroy ships. But I think they are lying about how dangerous these areas really are. Admiral Morrison opened a folder of secret reports from his exploration ships. We have been testing our ships in the edges of these dark zones. Our technology is different from Council technology. It is simpler but also more flexible. I believe we can modify our ships to work in areas where Council ships cannot go. The President called for a vote on whether humanity should attempt to leave the Galactic Council. Every person in the room understood that this decision would determine the future of the human race. They could stay and accept being servants forever, or they could try to escape and risk being destroyed completely. The vote was unanimous. Humanity would leave the Galactic Council, but they would have to do it in a way that prevented the Council from following them and punishing them. General Collins presented the military challenges they would face. We have human soldiers and civilians scattered across dozens of star systems. We would need to evacuate everyone at the same time without the Council noticing until it was too late. This would be the largest and most complex military operation in human history. Dr. Turner had been working on the technical problems for months in secret. We would need to modify every human ship to work in the dark zones. We would also need to take as much technology and knowledge as possible from Council systems before we leave. Once we go, we will be cut off from everything. Kate Sullivan, who had returned from her mining assignment, presented the industrial challenges. We would need to evacuate entire space stations, orbital factories, and mining operations. Everything that took us decades to build would have to be taken apart and moved. Admiral Morrison explained the escape route he had planned. The dark zone closest to human space is 3 weeks away by our fastest ships. If we can get everyone there before the Council realizes what is happening, we might be able to disappear completely. Ambassador Green raised the most difficult question. What about Earth itself? The Council has representatives and monitoring stations on our homeworld. They will know something is wrong the moment we start evacuating our people from space. President Johnson looked around the room at the faces of humanity's leaders. Then we evacuate Earth too, all of it. Every person, every important piece of technology, every piece of our history and culture that we can carry. We leave nothing behind for the Council to use against us. The plan that emerged from the meeting was so ambitious that it seemed impossible. Humanity would secretly modify all their ships for dark zone travel. They would quietly evacuate every human from Council space. They would take apart their space stations and factories and load everything onto massive transport ships. Finally, they would evacuate Earth itself and disappear into the unknown regions of space where the Council could not follow. Dr. Turner would lead the technology teams that would copy and steal as much alien knowledge as possible. General Collins would coordinate the military evacuation. Admiral Morrison would prepare the ships and the escape routes. Ambassador Green would return to Council space and act like nothing was wrong while secretly helping to organize the evacuation. President Johnson would coordinate everything from Earth while preparing for the most difficult part of the plan, convincing 8 billion people to leave their home world forever. It would take at least a year to prepare, and it would require perfect timing. If the Council discovered what they were planning before they were ready, humanity would be destroyed. As the meeting ended, every person in the room understood that they had just voted to bet the survival of the human race on a plan that had never been attempted before. They would either achieve freedom among the stars or they would be wiped out completely. There was no middle ground and no turning back. The next morning, President Johnson stood on the balcony of her office and looked up at the sky. Somewhere out there, beyond the Council's control, lay the future of humanity. The question was whether they would be strong enough and clever enough to reach it. The next 18 months became the most complex secret operation in human history. Every human in space had to act normal while preparing for something that had never been tried before. They called it Operation Exodus, and it would either save humanity or destroy them completely. Captain Jake Morrison commanded a mining fleet on the edge of Council space, but his ships were no longer just looking for metals and minerals. While his crews appeared to be working normally, they were secretly mapping every star system within reach and testing their equipment in areas where Council ships rarely went. His modified scanners could detect suitable planets for human colonies while appearing to search for mining deposits. Commander Lisa Brooks led a team of engineers who traveled between human installations, supposedly doing maintenance and upgrades. In reality, they were secretly copying alien technology and installing hidden modifications to human equipment. Every piece of Council technology they could access was studied, recorded, and reverse-engineered. The information was stored in hidden databanks that could be quickly transferred to evacuation ships. On Earth, engineer Kate Sullivan managed what appeared to be massive efficiency improvements to human industry. New shipyards were built in asteroid belts around Earth, presented to alien inspectors as expanded mining operations. Underground factories on Earth worked around the clock building transport ships and modifying existing vessels for the journey ahead. Every human facility was quietly prepared for rapid evacuation. Dr. Alex Turner made the breakthrough that would make everything possible. Deep in the ruins of an ancient alien civilization that had died out millions of years ago, his archaeological team found star charts and navigation data pointing to regions of space that the Council feared to enter. These areas were marked in Council records as the dark zones, supposedly filled with deadly radiation and gravity fields that destroyed ships. The radiation is not deadly, Turner explained to the Secret Planning Committee during one of their hidden meetings. The gravity fields are unusual but not impossible to navigate. The Council species avoid these areas because their faster-than-light drive systems do not work properly there. Their technology is too advanced and specialized to adapt to the strange conditions. Commander Ben Parker, who had been promoted to lead the ship modification program, had been testing human FTL drives in secret for months. "Our fusion-based system is much simpler than Council technology," he reported. "It is also more flexible and can be modified to work in different conditions. I believe we can adapt our ships to travel through the dark zones while Council ships cannot follow us." The plan required perfect coordination across dozens of star systems. Every human ship, space station, orbital factory, and mining operation would need to be evacuated simultaneously. The massive colony ships being built in secret would carry not just people, but entire cities' worth of equipment, technology, and supplies needed to rebuild human civilization in the dark zones. General Sam Collins coordinated the military aspects of the operation from his headquarters on Luna. "We need to make it look like a massive system failure," he explained to his trusted officers. "Every human installation will go dark at exactly the same time. By the time Council forces investigate what happened, we will be gone without leaving any trace of where we went." The deception required careful planning. Ambassador Rachel Green had returned to Council space and was filing regular complaints about mining quotas and work assignments. To the Council, it looked like humanity was just being difficult about their job assignments, not planning to disappear completely. The bureaucratic resistance helped hide the real preparation taking place. Admiral Paul Morrison supervised the construction of the largest fleet in human history. Transport ships the size of cities were being built in hidden shipyards throughout the solar system. Colony ships capable of carrying millions of people were assembled in the asteroid belt, where Council surveillance was minimal. Every ship was designed specifically for dark zone travel and long-term space habitation. Kate Sullivan's teams worked on the most difficult part of the operation, preparing to evacuate Earth itself. The orbital elevators that had taken decades to build would need to be dismantled and loaded onto ships. Critical infrastructure, museums, libraries, and cultural artifacts would all need to be packed and transported. Even more challenging, they would need to convince 8 billion people to leave their home world forever. Dr. Turner's technology theft program was more successful than anyone had dared hope. His teams had managed to copy not just alien technology, but also massive databases of scientific knowledge, historical records, and cultural information from dozens of Council species. "We are not just taking their technology," he explained to President Johnson. "We are taking everything we learned from 3 years of integration. Humanity will start over in the dark zones, but we will not start ignorant." The psychological preparation was as important as the technical preparation. Every human in space had to be slowly prepared for what was coming without alerting Council surveillance systems. Coded messages hidden in routine communications gradually informed human workers and soldiers about the evacuation plan. Most people were told only what they needed to know to play their part. Ben Parker's ship modification program faced constant challenges. Human ships needed to be upgraded for dark zone travel without making the modifications obvious to Council inspectors. The work had to be done in secret during regular maintenance periods, with the new equipment hidden inside existing systems. Every modification was tested carefully to ensure it would work when needed. The timeline was critical. Intelligence reports suggested that the Council was becoming suspicious of human activities. Some alien officials had noticed that humans were asking more questions and being less cooperative than before. Rachel Green reported that Council security was beginning to investigate human facilities more closely. "We have a narrow window," General Collins warned the Planning Committee. "If we wait too long, the Council will discover what we are planning. If we move too early, we will not be ready and the evacuation will fail." The final preparations involved creating false trails and misdirection. Human exploration ships made several highly visible trips to uninhabited systems in Council space, creating the impression that humans were looking for colony sites within Council territory. This helped hide the real reconnaissance missions that were mapping safe routes through the dark zones. President Johnson faced the most difficult task of all, preparing Earth's population for the evacuation. The truth about the Council's treatment of humanity was gradually released to the public, along with evidence of what happened to other species that tried to leave. Public opinion slowly shifted from excitement about galactic membership to anger about exploitation and fear about the future. As the operation moved into its final phase, every human installation in space was ready for instant evacuation. Ships were loaded with supplies and equipment, modified for dark zone travel, and positioned for rapid departure. Transport schedules were coordinated to move millions of people and vast amounts of cargo in a matter of hours. The success of Operation Exodus would depend on timing, luck, and the courage of every human involved. They were about to attempt something that no species in galactic history had ever accomplished: escaping from the Galactic Council and disappearing into the unknown reaches of space, where freedom might still be possible. Dr. Turner looked at the star charts showing their planned route into the dark zones and felt both hope and terror. "In a few weeks, humanity will either be free or extinct," he said to his closest colleagues. "There is no middle ground." The day humanity walked away from the galaxy began like any other day. Across 200 star systems, humans reported for work at mining stations, farms, military bases, and research facilities. Council supervisors noticed nothing unusual as human workers went about their normal routines. But by noon, Galactic Standard Time, every human installation in space had gone completely silent. Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of what was now the colony ship New Horizon, watching as the last transport vessels docked with his massive ship. His mining fleet had been secretly converted into evacuation ships over the past year, and now they carried 40,000 people from the Outer Rim mining operations. "That's everyone from the outer systems," he reported to Admiral Paul Morrison over the secure communication link. 40,000 souls, plus all our equipment and supplies. The evacuation had been planned down to the minute. At exactly the same time across the galaxy, human installations had shut down their power systems, activated automated distress signals claiming technical failures, and loaded their people onto hidden transport ships. To Council observers, it looked like humanity was experiencing a massive system breakdown caused by equipment failures. Commander Lisa Brooks monitored the evacuation of Earth from the bridge of the massive transport ship ESS Endurance. The orbital elevators that had taken decades to build were being dismantled and loaded onto colony ships piece by piece. "Earth evacuation is at 90%, she reported. "Just the skeleton crew and defensive installations left to cover. Our final departure." The technology theft had been incredibly successful. Dr. Alex Turner's teams had copied entire alien databases during what appeared to be routine maintenance operations. They had not just stolen Council technology, but had also taken massive amounts of scientific knowledge, star charts, and cultural records from dozens of species. "We took everything we could learn from 3 years of integration," Turner explained to President Mary Johnson aboard the command ship Terra's Pride. "Humanity will be starting over, but we will not be starting ignorant. The most dangerous part of the operation was evacuating Earth itself. Council representatives and monitoring stations on the planet had to be dealt with carefully to prevent them from alerting Council fleet commanders too early. Special teams led by General Sam Collins had quietly disabled communication systems and detained alien personnel without harming them. The aliens would be released after the evacuation was complete, but they could not be allowed to interfere. Ben Parker coordinated the final technical preparations from his engineering ship. Every human vessel had been modified for Dark Zone travel, using technology reverse-engineered from ancient alien ruins. "All ships report ready for Dark Zone transition," he announced over the fleet communication system. "Drive modifications are working perfectly, and navigation systems are locked onto our destination coordinates." The fleet that assembled at the edge of Council space was the largest in human history. Massive colony ships carried entire cities worth of people and equipment. Transport vessels hauled industrial machinery, power plants, and the raw materials needed to build a new civilization. Even Earth's moon had been partially mined to provide construction materials for the journey ahead. Kate Sullivan supervised the loading of Earth's cultural treasures onto the evacuation ships. Museums, libraries, art galleries, and historical sites had been carefully packed and transported to the fleet. "We are taking our entire civilization with us," she reported to President Johnson. "Our history, our culture, our knowledge, everything that makes us human is coming with us to the dark zones." The final phase was the most dangerous because it required fighting Council forces that came to investigate the mysterious system failures. Earth's defensive installations, upgraded with secretly developed weapons technology, would need to hold off superior alien forces long enough for the last evacuation ships to escape. General Collins commanded the rearguard action personally, from the Lunar Defense Station. "Council investigation fleet incoming," reported Lieutenant Commander Steve Walsh from the early warning post. 12 ships, mixed Zephyrian and Krillian forces, approaching at high speed. Collins had prepared. For this moment for months, human defensive systems had been secretly upgraded with improved weapons and shields developed from stolen Council technology. The plan was not to win the fight, but to delay the enemy long enough for the evacuation to be completed. "Fire warning shots across their bow," Collins ordered. "Let them know we are serious about defending ourselves, but give our people time to clear the system." The brief battle that followed would become legend among humans. Earth's defenders, using modified human weapons and tactics that the Council had never seen before, managed to hold off a technologically superior force. The aliens had expected to find helpless humans suffering from equipment failures, not a coordinated military resistance. The human ships used hit-and-run tactics, superior knowledge of the local system, and weapons designed specifically to exploit weaknesses in Council technology. While they could not win a prolonged fight, they bought precious time for the last colony ships to complete their loading and prepare for the jump to the dark zones. Admiral Morrison coordinated the final evacuation from his flagship. "All civilian ships report ready for departure," he announced. "Military units begin withdrawal to final defensive positions." As the Council fleet pressed their attack, the human defensive stations began shutting down one by one. But instead of surrendering, each installation exploded in a brilliant flash of light, destroyed by their own crews, to prevent Council forces from learning human secrets. The aliens found nothing but empty space and debris where human civilization had existed just hours before. President Johnson stood on the bridge of Terra's Pride as the command ship prepared for its final jump. Earth was visible through the viewport, the blue and green world that had been humanity's home for millions of years. In a few moments, they would leave it forever and venture into the unknown darkness between stars. "All ships report ready for Dark Zone transition," announced the navigation officer. "Course laid in for the first waypoint." Johnson activated the fleet communication system to address all of humanity one last time before they disappeared from the galaxy. "My fellow humans," she began, "today we leave behind everything we have known to seek freedom among the stars. We go now to the darkness between worlds, where no Council ship can follow, and where we will build a new home for our species." As the massive fleet began its jump to the dark zones, Johnson broadcast a final message on all Council communication frequencies. Her words would be remembered across the galaxy for generations to come. Humanity withdraws from the Galactic Council. We reject your system of exploitation and slavery. We go now to the darkness between stars, where freedom still exists. We will not return until the galaxy is ready for true equality among all species. The last thing Council sensors detected was a massive energy surge as hundreds of human ships activated their modified FTL drives simultaneously. When the energy cleared, the entire human fleet had vanished completely, leaving behind only empty space and the echoes of a declaration that would inspire oppressed species throughout the galaxy. Humanity had walked away from the galaxy, and in doing so, had changed the course of galactic history forever. 5 years had passed since humanity vanished from Council space, and the dark zones had become something beautiful. What humans now called the Free Reaches stretched across 17 star systems, each one home to thriving human colonies. The massive colony ships that had carried them from Council space had been broken apart and rebuilt into orbital stations, planetary cities, and a new generation of starships designed specifically for life in the dark zones. Admiral Paul Morrison commanded the Free Reaches Defense Force from Liberty Station, a massive orbital platform above the capital world of Haven. His son Jake now led exploration missions deeper into the dark zones, discovering that humanity was not alone in this region of space. Other species had fled here over thousands of years, all of them escaping from council domination or extinction at the hands of more powerful civilizations. The free reaches had become a refuge for those who refused to accept slavery. Jake's exploration. Ships had made contact with 12 different refugee species, some of whom had been hiding in the dark zones for centuries. Together, they formed an alliance based on mutual respect and shared freedom rather than the exploitation that defined council space. Dr. Alex Turner had established the Free Reaches Research Institute on Haven, where human and alien refugees worked together on technologies that the council had forbidden. "We are not just surviving out here," he reported to the Haven Assembly during his monthly science briefing. "We are advancing faster than we ever did under council oversight. When you remove artificial restrictions and allow free exchange of knowledge, progress accelerates beyond imagination." The technological advances were remarkable. By combining human engineering with knowledge from other refugee species, they had developed new types of starships, energy systems, and manufacturing techniques that surpassed anything in council space. The dark zone environment that had once seemed hostile was now providing unique opportunities for scientific discovery, but the most significant changes were happening in council space itself. Word of the human exodus had spread despite official attempts at censorship. 3 different species had attempted their own escapes in the past 2 years, and while the council military had stopped them, the very fact that they tried had inspired others to consider rebellion. Ambassador Rachel Green, now serving as Director of External Affairs for the Free Reaches, had established contact with underground resistance movements across council territory. "The galaxy is changing," she reported to the Haven Assembly. "Species that have been enslaved for centuries are beginning to remember what freedom looks like. Our exodus showed them that escape is possible." The council itself was struggling with internal problems that had never existed before. Junior species were less willing to accept orders without question. Senior species were becoming more paranoid and controlling in response to the growing unrest. Every attempt to tighten control only created more resistance and drove more species to consider following humanity's example. Captain Jake Morrison stood on the observation deck of his new ship, the exploration vessel Pathfinder, watching twin suns set over Haven's first city. The settlement below was home to 3 million humans and 500,000 aliens from other refugee species. Children played in parks where multiple species learned and grew together, free from the artificial barriers that divided the galaxy. Commander Lisa Brooks joined him at the observation window. She was now his first officer on exploration missions that were revealing the true scope of the dark zones. "Do you think we will ever go back to council space?" she asked. Jake smiled as he watched the bustling city below. "Not to rejoin the council," he said, "but someday, when the galaxy is ready for real freedom, maybe the galaxy will come to us." The evidence suggested that day might come sooner than expected. The Zephyrian Empire had lost 3 colony worlds to independence movements in the past year. The Krillian military command was facing open rebellion in their outer territories. Even some of the senior council species were beginning to question whether the current system could survive much longer. Ben Parker had become the chief engineer for the Free Reaches shipbuilding program. His yards produced vessels that could travel freely between council space and the dark zones, allowing secret contact with resistance movements and refugee transport operations. "We are not just hiding out here anymore," he explained to a group of new refugees. "We are building something that will eventually replace the council entirely." Kate Sullivan managed the industrial development of the Free Reaches, overseeing the construction of factories, power plants, and space habitats that supported millions of people across 17 worlds. "Every month we grow stronger," she reported. "Every month the council grows weaker as more species lose faith in their system." The cultural impact of the human exodus was spreading faster than any military force. Stories of the species that walked away were told in secret across the galaxy. Songs and poems celebrating human courage were shared through underground networks. The idea that freedom was possible had taken root in minds that had never dared to imagine escape before. Dr. Turner's research teams had made discoveries that would reshape galactic civilization. The dark zones contained ancient technologies and knowledge left behind by civilizations that had thrived before the Council ever existed. "We are learning that the galaxy was once very different," he explained to his colleagues. "There was a time when species cooperated as equals rather than serving the strongest. We are not creating something new. We are returning to something that was lost." President Mary Johnson, now serving as the elected leader of the Free Reaches Council, often reflected on the decision that had brought them to this point. "We thought we were just saving ourselves," she said during a speech marking the 5th anniversary of the Exodus. "But we were actually lighting a flame that is spreading across the entire galaxy." The children of the Free Reaches were growing up with a very different view of the universe than their parents had known. They learned that all species were equal, that knowledge should be shared freely, and that cooperation was stronger than domination. These children would never accept the kind of treatment that humans had received in Council space. As Jake watched the sunset over Haven, he realized that humanity had accomplished something far greater than escape. They had proven that another way was possible. They had shown that species could work together as equals rather than as masters and servants. They had demonstrated that freedom was worth any sacrifice. The galaxy would indeed never forget the day the humans walked away, because it was the day the universe remembered that tyranny could be resisted and that freedom could not be destroyed. The Council still controlled most of the galaxy, but their control was weakening as more species chose hope over fear. In the end, humanity had not just saved themselves by walking into the darkness between stars. They had lit a beacon that would guide others to freedom for generations to come. The galaxy was slowly awakening from a long nightmare of oppression, and the dream of true equality among all species was finally becoming possible.